Hallmark with Loving Grace, and she's going to tell us what it's all about. She'll just let her tell
you. Good morning. As he said, I'm Jessica Palmer, and I'm the Development Director for Loving Grace. When it's kind of coming a little, isn't it? It's kind of exciting. I'm going to move this out of the way because I like to walk a little bit, so I might run into it. It'd be embarrassing. So thank you for having me today at 1 Million Cups. I'm excited to share with you about our organization. Loving Grace has been around for 8 years in this area. That might be surprising to some of you. You may never have seen us. We're out in the Royal Heights neighborhood. Just a little bit of our history. We were started by a group of people who attended Royal Heights Methodist Church. So if you've seen that on St. Louis Avenue, you're driving by, big old church sign, we're kind of in that valley. But the members of that church in the 70s had decided they wanted to provide for low-income housing residents in the Joplin area, and they developed an apartment complex called the Hampshire Terrace Apartments. Those were unfortunately destroyed in the Joplin tornado. And after that, they decided they did not want to start another apartment complex. They wanted to see what's going on in the Joplin area. How can we use these funds to help another group of people in the Joplin area that we may not have known need help? So they did some research, and they found that transitional aged youth are the ones that were really being kind of left in the dark in our area. So Loving Grace was born out of that research and of conversations that they had. This is what they came up with. So we're established at 1414 Euclid Avenue. We're serving young women ages 18 to 24 who are of transitional age, that are transitioning out of foster care, who are homeless, who are pregnant, or who are parenting a small child. So we have been operating for about 7 years, just serving those who were not pregnant or parenting a small child. The original facility was only able to hold 8 girls, and we didn't have the space for a child. So if they came and they were pregnant, they had to find some other resource for the child once the child was born if they were going to remain in our program. And that really was a difficult thing for us to have to tell young women that are already coming with complex trauma. You got to find something to do with your kid. That's a lot, or 9 months to make a decision on where you're going next. So we had many, many calls for young women that were pregnant or parenting a small child. So the need of these young women in crisis was brought to our attention, and we developed a second home, which we have named Doris House, which serves the same age group of young women. We are a home. I want to tell you about our mission. We spent a little bit of time revamping and reworking some things. So this is our new and improved vision that we just came up with last year after much prayer and consideration. Loving Grace is a home that aims to embrace every young woman with the love of Christ, to educate them with the tools they need to succeed and live an empowered life. And our vision is that all women would have the resources they need to succeed in our community. So a little bit about who we are. I've kind of explained what we're doing, but the situations that our residents come from are not limited to, but they are homelessness, poverty, aging out of foster care, poor family relationships, inadequate living conditions, such as living on someone's couch that's not their parents. We also have domestic violence situations, open cases from Children's Division, or young women that are in the public administrator's custody. So we have had young women come to us who, let's say they're 28 years old but have the mindset of a 12-year-old and they're pregnant and they have no idea how that happened. They give birth to the child thinking it's magic. The child is then adopted into foster care, but they have a place that is safe, people who care about them, and they have support from a public administrator who's going to make sure that the rest of their life they're not taken advantage of, and they have people around them that are going to care for them. That's one of the really cool situations we've gotten to help in recently. We have young women coming to us who have just come out of a gang, and it's a really unsafe situation for them, and no one needs to know where they are. So we have had some anonymity in our community for safety reasons, of course, for those kinds of situations. So we do provide food, housing, education, employment opportunities. What does that mean? Well, we do provide an evening meal program for all of our young women. It's a family-style meal. We want them to feel that community feel as they're sitting and enjoying one another, and staff is sitting with them having great conversation. And we want them to have that security that every single night you know you're going to get a home-cooked meal. And many of our girls come to us they haven't had anything warm to eat for a very long time. It's been, ramen, or that's been out of the package, not even cooked, or a sandwich, they just haven't experienced that family style meal that's warm. We also provide education opportunities. So many of our young women come and they have not had their high school education finished. They're still in the midst of that. And so some of them may be so far behind that they participate in the Flex program at the high school. So there are lots of different resources we can use to help them finish their education, Joplin High School being one of them with the Flex program. We also work with Joplin NALA to make sure that they can finish their HiSET program if they're wanting to do that instead of attending the traditional high school. We also provide employment support. So one of the things that they come to us with is the lack of retention for their employment. So they may start a job, quit in 2 weeks because they don't like what happened, someone got made them mad, whatever. There's that issue of trying to keep employment when you're under a lot of stress and you've had complex trauma. Again, I'm mentioning that. So our staff works with them, and our case managers work with them to develop those tools that they need to go back into the workforce and stay in the workforce. And then also, we're developing community resources and involvement for them as they're with us. So one of the things we do require is that they are attending a church. So if young women come to us and they have some kind of complex trauma related to a church, or they are strongly opposed to attending, we also provide for them volunteer opportunities. The point is, we want them to be in the community, and we want them to have kind, loving people surrounding them and asking them, how are you doing in your life? What's going on in your life? Texting them, asking them to come to dinner. You're generally going to find that in a church, but you're also going to find that in some pretty awesome organizations in our town that are volunteer-based. So we want to become a vital resource in the community for these young women that are without hope and in a dangerous situation often, and without a caring adult to support them. The Loving Grace program ensures that each young woman learns how to stay. And so that's another thing I kind of covered with our employment retention program, is that we want them to stay. We want to stay in healthy change, even when it's hard. Eating well and having healthy schedule and healthy choices in how you live your life. We want to help them to stay in those patterns. We want to help them stay in employment, stay in healthy relationships, stay in school, stay with their child. So there's this idea of staying. And so we allow them to stay 18 to 21 months in order to work through the entire program, learning how to have some permanence in lots of those areas of their life. And ultimately, we're wanting to keep them from a return to homelessness. So another thing I would like to tell you about with our Doris House program, so we have two programs. One's called Oglesby House, which is for young women that are unattached. Doris House is for young women that are pregnant or parenting. So when a young woman is pregnant or parenting a small child, and they're also transitioning to adulthood at the same time as parenthood, that's a really big deal. And they're gonna need a lot of support in order to make that transition well. And so we want to offer them grace, we want to offer them hope, knowing that, you may have come from this, but you can become a stable person for your child, and you can retain and keep that relationship with your child and keep custody of your child if you work through these things, these steps. So we believe that they are blessed when they believe that the promises that God has given them, that they are loved, that they are worthy, that they are they're wanted. If they believe those things, man, they can be blessed and they can be successful in our program. And I will say also, back on that last slide, I'm sorry, I missed this important thing. We are a faith-fueled program. I know I've mentioned that a couple of times in this presentation, but I want you to know that we don't require a decision for Christ for any of our resources, and there is no pressure for them to develop a relationship with Jesus, but man, if they do in the process, that's awesome, and we would love for that to happen. We provide the following during their stay. There is safe, secure shelter, which is really important for young women, again, who've been through this complex trauma. Being in a safe place, we had a young woman come in that would never sleep under the covers on her bed. And I thought, that is so strange. So one day I went, I said, why won't you ever sleep under your covers on your bed? And she explained to me that that's some trauma triggers right there, that in the past someone had hurt her when that had occurred, and so she always slept on top of her covers, and either the door had to be shut or open. There's a lot of different things that they say they've got to have in order to feel secure. But we try to work with them to show them that they are safe and allow them to work through whatever those triggers are, so that eventually maybe they are sleeping under the covers. Maybe they are having their door shut all night. You know, there's some really beautiful changes that occur whenever they do feel like they're safe and they're secure. And again, I said we do cover education in the areas of social life and budgeting skills and work ethic. We provide age-appropriate recreational activities for them, food including meals and snacks, and I did say we do have an evening meal program, but we also provide breakfast and lunch if they don't have a way to provide that themselves. Some girls might come in with a job and they just need a place to stay, and so they're able to purchase breakfast and lunch items for themselves, but we want them to know that if they don't have that resource right now, we'll provide that for you. We want them to feel secure, again, if they don't need to worry. We provide educational support, case management. Transportation is another thing we provide for young women. None of them come with cars. I think maybe we've had one that came with a car. And so when they come in, they're gonna need all these resources such as counseling, they're gonna need to go finish their education, they're gonna need to get to their job. So we provide that transportation for them. We do have a couple of 15-passenger vans, and we will take them to whatever appointments they have that they need transportation to. We also connect them with resources in the community. Since we don't provide counseling right on site, we want to provide opportunities for them to go and receive crisis counseling, medical treatment, counseling services, case management. If they have a disability, they're going to work with some external case management services to make sure that they can be set up for when they leave Loving Grace. And then education and employment services and financial services as well. We will connect them with those services. So at Loving Grace, you're gonna find, at Doris House, Loving Grace, you're gonna find safe housing for mother and child suites. And then the things that I covered, such as financial education, career guidance, personal coaching, professional counseling, and so forth. It's really important that they learn all these skills before they head back out into the community again. Again, transitioning from childhood to adulthood is a really big transition, and without adults guiding them through that are loving and kind and want to help them, it's going to be awfully hard for them to do that off of somebody's couch, wouldn't you say? So, and we want to help them to receive their driver's license, their birth certificate, their state ID, and honestly, that is something that's really difficult for someone who's living on someone else's couch. They don't even know where their birth certificate is. They don't know where their social security card is. They don't have a state ID. So many of our girls come to us and we spend just the first month trying to get all their identification information. We've honestly had young ladies come from Africa that have been adopted somehow into the United States by a family who never got official paperwork. And so we've had to work with legal services to get the paperwork for who they actually are and track all of that down. We've had some very complicated situations that we've worked through, but getting driver's license and birth certificate, I mean, how else are you going to get a job, right? So these are the kinds of services that we provide at Loving Grace for these young women in these situations. We want to help them to get their first job with that really important paperwork and save for their first car. We've been working with Higher Power Garage in Joplin. They are able to apply for either getting a car, or if they did have a car, apply for fixing their car with Higher Power Garage. That's been a great resource for us to partner with. And again, finishing school and learning to adult with plenty of grace. So in Joplin, what's the big deal? Like, is it really that bad in Joplin? Well, over the last 7 years, the amount of homeless students in the Joplin schools has doubled. Statistics show on our Missouri State website. And I just got information from the high school yesterday. I was asking for some research, just how many students do we have in the high school that would qualify as homeless? And currently there are 79 in our system right now. And we don't have all 79 at Loving Grace. And so half of that probably is boys as well. So there is a great need in Joplin for the service that we provide and for future services for young men. If that's something that someone has the capital to help us start up, then man, let's throw that out there and let's get that started, because the need is great on both sides. I would love to show you our video now, if that's okay. We just finished a promotional video, so please enjoy that.
I thought I knew what a strong woman looked like until I came to Loving Grace and I met our residents. The levels of trauma and the limitations that they have to come from was anything beyond my imagination. And this wasn't somebody that lived across the ocean or lived in a third world country. These are people that lived 20 minutes away from Loving Grace.
Over the last 7 years, the amount of homeless students in the Joplin schools has doubled. Young adults often often don't classify themselves as homeless because they're living on someone's couch, they're living out of their car, they're living with some friends or with a family member. They don't have a home. Love and Grace wants to be a home for young people.
So Loving Grace is a transitional living facility for young women ages 17 to 24. They usually come from places like aging out of foster care, or sex trafficking, or homelessness.
So we have a variety of young women from a variety of situations, and Loving Grace is prepared to provide counseling, support, resources for them so that they can finish their education, so that they can get a job, so that they can handle adult stresses and hardships as a young adult. We have had to adapt and open a new facility for young women that are pregnant or parenting. I've had many girls walk in through the doors and say, "This feels different. I feel safe here. You guys are kind to me. I feel loved." It means the world to hear that because we take our name seriously. We provide love and grace for every girl that walks through our doors. We are a faith-fueled organization, and we want girls to see their value and their worth in Christ. And we want them to see there's the opportunity to find the rest that you need, to find the hope that you need, and hopefully to find a relationship with Jesus.
I'm very excited about that video that we just finished a month ago. So here's the program, here's what we're doing. We're wanting to make a difference in Joplin. How can you all help us? We are a faith-fueled community with a passion to see the lives of young women in crisis transformed. And we're looking for women and families who have a passion for transitional age youth and want to transform the next generation of families in our area. So obviously, when you're working one-on-one with our young women, we're gonna want women probably doing that because they're gonna feel safer with that situation. But if you're part of a family, if you're a male who's interested in taking your wife and your kids and saying, I wanna bless this young lady and I wanna see if this is a good fit for us to just invite this young woman to sit at our table, have dinner with us, join us for Christmas, just hang out with us. If you want to be fit with a young woman and see if you guys jive together, we would love to talk to you. We would love to have you volunteer with our organization, whether you're male or female in those manners. You have a kitchen table, you have a car, you have a listening ear, do you have a loving church community? Are you part of a community-minded organization? Do you have financial resources? Do you want to leave a legacy? Those are all ways that you can help Loving Grace complete our mission in the Joplin area. You can donate. Our aim is to be a vital resource for our community and provide support for these young women. So even $5 a month is a great donation for us. We're looking for donorship. We're looking for the support of our community, not only financially, but also through volunteer work and supporting all of the really awesome programs that we're gonna set, events that we're gonna set up for the year. We have one that's really exciting called the Schools Out Bash that's gonna happen in a week and a half at the Humphrey Park. It's June 4th. And so we'd be excited to have you all come out for that. We're planning a couple other exciting events for later in the year. So joining those events would be really great for us. But we can't sustain this work without our community. There isn't really a reason for us to continue without our community. And so we need the support of our community to continue. What kind of investments can you do? We also have many ways to receive donations. If you have questions about that, I'm happy to talk to you about that. We work with Community Foundation of the Ozarks, and they help us to receive. They even told us we could receive cattle if we needed to. They could figure it out. If somebody owned cattle and they wanted to sell it, we could figure it out. We do accept in-kind donations as well, whether that be services, or if you have physical items that you'd like to donate, I'd be happy to talk to you about that as well, if there's something that's on your mind or heart. But we do ask for mostly new items if that's possible, just because it's easier for us to work with. But we're always in need of formula and diapers, man. Cleaning supplies, that stuff we can always take. So if there's just like every other month, you're like, I think I'm gonna send some Dawn over there. Man, we can use it. Toilet paper, whatever. But it just costs $173 per bed night to run both programs. So that is the cost of running this program in Joplin. making sure that they have the meals that they need, the education they need, and all the resources that we provide, $173 a night. So, like I said, volunteering is another awesome way to help us. If you have a heart for young women, have a heart for children, want to see families come from poverty to being part of our community as a supporting and excited member of our society and in our workforce, then man, this is the place to start, grassroots. No act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. That's what Aesop said, I like that. So our struggles, how could we use some help? We could really use some donorship, we really could, from our community. We would like to grow that, grow our base. We could use volunteers, we could use really great employees. So we have several that are really awesome, but we still need more. So if you've got some friends that are like, you know, I think I wanna go and I wanna do something really cool with my life, Loving Grace is the way to start. So just send them our way. They can go to our website, www.lovingrace.org, lovinggrace.org, and they can apply for volunteering, they can apply for employment, they can also apply for living at Loving Grace at that, if you have a young lady that's in need that you know of. We're looking for partnerships within the community in whatever way you would like to partner with us. I've given you several options here in this presentation. We're looking for brand awareness, which we've been working really steadily at. Yesterday we got to be on the news for a really awesome grant we received from the Philanthropic Society of Joplin, so that was really beautiful support that we got from our community that way. So we've gotten to have some TV spots, we've gotten to have some radio spots, and we're working to get our name and our brand out there so people know not just to receive funds from people and donations and volunteers, but also so that we can get our name out there for young women to know where we are and who we are. You know, because if we have 79 in our Joplin High School and they don't know about our services, then what are we doing? You know, we want them to know what we're doing, so getting our name out there is really important for our community. And then again, just receiving the community support. How can you help us? Spread the word, become a monthly donor, even if it's $5, help us make connections with community partners. We need good quality support staff, help us fundraise. We have a fundraising committee if you're interested in that. And invite us to your church or your organization. We'd love to come and talk about what we do at Loving Grace. And that is all I have. I would love to take questions.
Who has a question? Who has a question?
Yes.
Great presentation, first of all.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, so on any given time, like currently right now, do you have like beds and spots available in
We
both
do.
houses?
We do in both houses, actually.
Okay.
Summer tends to be a time when we see a decreased census because it's warm outside. So camping out in a tent really isn't that bad until it gets extremely hot or extremely cold. And so this is the time of year that we start to see kind of a dip. So yeah,
And
we
then
have some
generally,
spaces.
if you were to basically be full and someone and a woman come in and approach you and like want to apply, but you don't have space, I'm assuming obviously that you're working with other organizations so they're not being turned away.
Absolutely. Yeah, if there's any way they can get into Water Gardens, Souls Harbor, if they can get into the Washington Hope Center, if they do have a child. We work with all the nonprofits in Joplin. So if there is another, or just support in Joplin, any support service, we're working with them to make sure they're not just left in the cold. We do the best we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we keep them on a waiting list as well, so when a space opens, we would be happy to take them.
Very cool.
Who else has a question?
I have a question. Good job, Jessica. So my question is about, you've been talking about how you've been trying to get the message out, the word out. I feel like there's probably several people in the audience who could provide some input on that. If you could maybe elaborate on what that has looked like, what process you've been working through and what that is.
Yes, so we've been working through social media, we've been working through a little bit of print. We're not sending out ads to every house in Joplin, that's not happening. But just connecting with our local radio stations has been great. But I mean, I think sharing the events that we're going to have in the next coming months would be very helpful. Sharing anything you see on our social media, liking and following us there. And connecting people with our website would be really great. You know, especially if you know people that are in need or that want to volunteer to be part of our organization. Is that kind of what you meant?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it seems like people always have good ideas in the audience about how to spread the word.
I would be
So
happy to hear any of it.
I'm hoping to generate some of that, but we'll see.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Sean.
I got a question. Just how many, what's your capacity? How many beds do you have?
Yes, so we have 15 total. There are 7 beds for young women that are pregnant or parenting, and there are 8 beds for those who are unattached.
And also, since there's a, you mentioned the Joplin High School has a lot of people that could
Yeah.
use your services. Are you working with them and their counselors to, push those girls towards you that are needing?
Absolutely. So we do have relationships with all of the area school counselors. If you know of one that's been like, I don't know anything about that, please tell them, because we want to have that relationship if we don't, but we're fairly certain we have relationships with all of the schools. We've been working with several schools in the area, and colleges. We work with them as well. We get referrals from all sorts of places. I mean, we're talking anywhere from churches to, just a concerned community member, to high schools, colleges, hospitals. We get several referrals from them, and then public administrators as well, so.
Good job. I just wanted to talk, this is probably something I need to talk to you later about.
Oh,
But I was
okay.
wondering if my classes, my Repurpose with the classes, Repurpose with a Purpose, that's my, I give a portion of my proceeds to you guys. That's my purpose.
That's beautiful.
And I was wondering if we could maybe partner on our websites, put my logo on y'all's, put your logo on mine, so that I can explain that actually part of that goes to you guys, so that I am a supporter of y'all, and show how important it is for this group.
Absolutely, we'd be happy to sit down and chat about that anytime, yeah.
So from a workforce standpoint, and the girls seeking employment and things like that, so do you, prefer, cause I had read that you help them with like resume and obviously preparing for that process, but have you seen that there are certain jobs that maybe you, suggest to the women, or are you having them sort of go out and sort of search for different types of employment, or do also I guess the flip side is, do you guys like to maybe work with specific either businesses or organizations that might be hiring, to sort of field, the ladies in with certain types of employment?
Yeah, so every young woman that comes in within 30 days, we're sitting down and making a plan with them. So we're finding out where they are in life, where they are intellectually, where they are emotionally, trying to understand what their situation is so that we can pair them with the right job. So often it is very much driven by them and their ability. But I know recently we've had some really great relationships with College View Manor. We've had a couple of young ladies that have successfully been working there for a while, and that seems to be a really great job. I feel like working with elderly is really good for our age group, because, I don't know, there's just something about teenagers working with elderly people, and a lot of them say, I just really love doing that, so nursing home jobs have been really good, historically for our girls. But I would say pretty much any job, as long as they can mentally and emotionally handle it. So again, we're trying to watch pretty carefully what kinds of jobs we're putting them in or encouraging them to pursue, based on their abilities.
Or maybe starting with like part-time and then working up to more hours.
Exactly, and since Doris House is a fairly new program, serving young women that are pregnant or parenting, we're learning that starting out at part-time is better, because it's a lot to go through, working full-time and then having a baby and then trying to get back into that with all the other things that are going on in their life. So we're trying to kind of figure out through our program what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And still learning, there's a lot of learning that happens with a new program, so.
I just have a question follow up on that, is, are they, the home that has the children, are you providing childcare in some way for,
So that's
in
another
that
need.
house?
Yeah.
For those
Right.
kids, for those parents,
That is a great question. So that's another need that we have. When young women go back to work in the state, if they're looking for assistance from the state for childcare, which all of them are, because they're single mothers, they don't have that support of a stay-at-home parent. And so they have to be working for 2 months before they can get that state aid. And so there are 2 months where someone has to be watching that child. And so that is often a barrier to get them back to work. And so we just, as we've been doing this for, 9 months, almost a year, so we're starting to see all of these things that are barriers for our girls. We have a great need in that area. We're looking, Community Foundation of the Ozarks is talking with us about a possible donor that might wanna help with that process, but we're still in the ideas phase, like we're trying to figure out what's best to get those girls back to work and get them the childcare that they need.
Is
We're
there
not-
a way for them, like the girls that are in that house to share that responsibility?
So,
Or is that
that's another thing that we're looking at with liability issues and trying to figure out with licensing, whether we can be licensed to do that. And so that's a great question. That's something we're still working to address. Yeah.
On that, there, and I don't know if.
I'm
like-
sorry, I didn't know you had the microphone.
Sorry.
Sorry,
I don't know
it's
if
okay.
there's a lot of partnership with Water Gardens in that, with the Jefferson House, they have an in-house daycare system
Okay,
for the girls and for the families that are there.
okay.
That might be something that
We
you
can
could
reach
ask
out.
them and say, hey, how did you guys do that? Or is there an opportunity for partnership because you don't have like an enormous amount of girls with kids? And
Right.
maybe it's something to work out in the beginning for those 2 months, just a idea that might be there for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I will definitely take that back to my team.
That's really good. I think Laurie took up my question because no, it's totally, it's all your fault. And, I really think that's important because I struggle with childcare and we can pay whatever it costs and we
Right.
still can't find it, right?
Yeah.
And, so it's very, I have some ideas we can talk about later, but, since she said that, I would just like to validate the need is so, not just vital, it's urgent. You know, I was a pastor in Joplin for 6 years, and our church was made up half of people struggling with meth or heroin addictions, which is a really hard place to be in ministry. So many of our kids, like you mentioned, 79 students. Well, guess what? These kids, most of them don't go to school that are homeless. There's a, and so.
Once they're 18, there's no requirement.
Or 17,
They
they
can't
don't
make it.
force them
Exactly,
in the
they
foster
can't.
care system at 17, so just a few months ago, our small group took on a 17-year-old young lady and gave her a place to stay, helped her get a job, helped her get enrolled back to finish her school, and she went home to get clothes from her bio father and some collectibles because she had been in the foster care system. She hadn't been back to get them, and her father actually took her life here in Joplin. And this was just a few months ago. 17-year-old young lady. The need is not just important, it's now. And we have to, as a community, if we can dream all these big, sorry, I'm just,
No, it's
take the
fine.
mic away, but
Yeah.
we can dream all these big dreams for our city that have to do with business and our future and our finances and what the city looks like. But if we don't fix these issues with our young people and we all jump in, like you said, and play that little part, then we will not be great no matter how great our commerce is.
Absolutely. Preach.
That's what he did.
Invitation up front. No, okay, so there's 79 that you said in Joplin, you have 15 beds.
Right?
Can you just talk maybe a little bit about maybe what your vision would be going forward for potential growth? Because if you're gonna have donorship and things like that, being able to cast some of that vision of this is where we want to go and what we want to do.
Yeah, so I mean, as I showed our vision up here, for all young women to have access to resources, and really all people that have access to resources at this age group, this is our passion, transitional age youth. We would love to see a home for young men, honestly, but that has to be something that is a funding reality as well. So since we just opened this second program, our expenses have it's doubled, nearly tripled, because we're having to have extra support staff, because there's not just young women in this home now, there are also children, and there are needs for more staff for that. So, you know, once the second program is stable, man, it'd be really awesome to be able to cast a vision for, you know, for future things like a home for young men and on a different site, we think, because I don't think right next door would be very wise. And honestly, we have built this second home, and we have people asking us many times a week, so when are you gonna build another one? There's a need for another one, and we're like, oh my gosh, like, that would be amazing to do that. but we're just trying to get the second program like up and running, you know? So one of our board members, Lauren, could attest to the same thing, right? So, so yeah, so I mean, our vision would be maybe another house, also serving the other gender as well. So, and actually, I did want to cover something that's a little bit controversial, but I just want to bring it up because sometimes it's just the elephant in the room. Jeannie asked me a really great question beforehand. She said, what do you do with those who are transitioning from male to female or female to male, and how do you handle that situation? And I'm just going to bring it up because it's on people's minds, you know? So we are going to provide help for them, no matter what their gender is, if there's something fluid between male and female going on there. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of complex trauma that's brought that individual to where they are. And so we're gonna provide services for them if they're coming to us and they're saying, I'm a woman, okay, and maybe biologically they are not. We're gonna say, okay, we're gonna provide a place for you off-site to stay, because if they're biologically male, it's not gonna be safe for the young women in our program to be in the same sleeping quarters areas as this person. And so we're gonna provide the same resources for them as we would provide for our young women. So there isn't this like, oh, you have problems, you can't come here. Everyone's got problems, we're all trying to work it out. We're gonna do the best we can to serve a person who is identifying or who is biologically that. We've had several young women that come in who also say that they are male and they're clearly female. And so, again, we're giving them the same services that we would give to anyone else, but they're gonna have to work the program. So that's often kind of that barrier there with working the program. Gotta work the program if you're gonna live in our facility.
A question about casinos. I'll give an example
Yeah.
first and how that could relate.
Okay.
So I live in Seneca, and Seneca has the most DUIs per population of anywhere in the entire state. And so the city police force is strapped, we don't even have holding cells there, so every DUI has to be shipped to Neotra.
Oh.
And it's a huge strain on the police force, and so they were able to build a case and prove that the casino is the cause. They went to the tribe, they presented it, they had proof, the tribe said, okay, this is obviously something we're responsible for, and they were able to write a grant to help satisfy that need. And the police force was given a lot of funding to help try and overcome that. So have you guys looked at doing any data analysis to see as the casinos have grown and gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, is that causing more need for these women? Is there any women in your homes that the relationship they're in could be blamed on the casinos being so close and getting linked into maybe sex trafficking or whatever else is going on at those hotel resorts? And if you could prove that point and show that, hey, our needs are rising and the populations of these girls in need are rising, and there is some correlation here with the increase of these casinos. As Downstream has grown, as Indigo Sky has grown, our needs have grown as well. And if you could prove that point and make that case to tribes and form some sense of obligation there, that opens up all kinds of grant funding. If you can show how you're satisfying a need that's being caused by them, then it can open up grant funding to help everybody. Because if they feel a sense of obligation, hey, we're responsible partially for these girls that are in need, now they can step up and they have an obligation to help. So I'm just curious if you guys have looked at it that way. And
We
tried to
haven't.
analyze
I mean,
it.
honestly, that's a really great data point
I
that I would love
bet,
to look at.
I would bet there are people in your homes that have in some way been brought into bad situations
Oh, I could
in
bet
those
too.
hotel casinos.
Absolutely.
So-
Yeah, I mean, trafficking is something you can't ignore in the Joplin area. There's these two major, interstates that intersect in our area, and we have been working with the RISE Coalition and with Choice Medical Solutions as well to just work together, mutually refer and have those conversations. We've been to several meetings with them, learning about how we can work well together to work on this crisis that's in our area, but I hadn't ever gotten that data point before, so I would love to look at that.
It's not that tribes don't care, it's
No.
that we have our own issues. We've
Sure.
gone through plenty and
Well,
are
sure.
trying to dig out what, unfortunately, we built our entire foundations on these massive casinos. And there are negative community impacts of those that, it's easy to overlook if nobody's calling them out,
It's true.
so.
That is an excellent point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.